Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I ask you to stand, please? I'm going to ask Councillor Thompson to lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Could you please repeat the Lord's Prayer? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Members of Council, the first order of business this evening is the adoption of the Council minutes of March 23rd, 2009, moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Are there any comments or questions or amendments to the motion? Having seen none, I'll call the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. This time I'll ask for any disclosures of a pecuniary interest by any members of Council. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, conflict AM 208-035.
035. Okay, thank you. Councillor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. AM-2008-035. My business is located directly across the street from this proposal.
Okay, so noted. Councillor Wing.
Under bylaws, 2009-58 Heritage Week Reserve Fund, just as a precaution because I declared a conflict on the matter last meeting, and bylaw 2009-59 regarding the museum project, my spouse is employed there.
Okay, so noted. Councillor Iononi.
AM 2008-035, I have a conflict on that also.
Councillor Iononi. We have 3 conflicts on that matter. Okay. Are there any others at this point? Okay, we'll move on then to deputations. This evening we do have a presentation by Wellspring Hope Fund, Ann Mantini, the Executive Director of Wellspring Niagara, and Liz Palmieri, the Executive Director of the Niagara Community Foundation, and Alex Hurlovich, our planner, are here to make a brief presentation to Council outlining the plan to establish an endowment fund to be in perpetuity by the Niagara Community Foundation. So welcome all. Alex, are you going to lead off?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. I'm joined tonight by Ann Mantini, as you've said, and Liz Palmieri. I'll start off, and I'll then turn it over to Ms. Mantini and Ms. Palmieri to give you a little bit of an outline of what they're doing, and then I'll come back and summarize what it is that we're going to be doing. Many people recognize me as the planning director who gives presentations at Monday night's council meetings. Other people recognize me as that running guy that goes by their house at 6 a.m. on all those cold and chilly mornings. And there are still others who are familiar with me as a volunteer peer support worker at Wellspring. And it's that latter aspect that I really want to address with council. I've joined with the Wellspring Niagara Group and the Niagara Community Foundation with a proposal to set up a community challenge to raise funds which would be put into an endowment fund to be used to benefit Wellspring Niagara. Wellspring Niagara is a nonprofit group providing cancer support for cancer patients and their families. And I'm going to turn it over to Ann now to outline the role of Wellspring in the community, and then Liz Palmieri to just give some background on the Niagara Community Foundation.
Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Good evening, Mayor Salsi and members of council. It's a pleasure to be here this evening to speak to you on behalf of Wellspring Niagara Cancer Support Foundation. Now, people who are diagnosed with cancer today hope for a cure, but until a cure is found, they need help to understand the psychological, emotional, social, and practical consequences of cancer and its treatments. And Wellspring Niagara is a local center that provides free supportive care programming to people who are coping with any type of cancer at any stage. Fulfilling the dream of my younger brother, Aldo Mantini, who lost his life to cancer at the age of 31, and inspired by many in his community to work together to bring this type of supportive care to Niagara, The Wellspring Niagara Centre opened its doors on June 1st, 2001, with a mission to provide free social, emotional, psychological, informational, and spiritual support to individuals living with cancer, their families, and close supporters. Since then, Wellspring Niagara has registered nearly 20,000 program attendances from men, women, and children who are living with cancer here in our Niagara region. Our free programs and services include individual and group support, coping skills, expressive therapies, energy work, educational workshops, presentations, and a lending resource library. With minimal staff, Wellspring Niagara relies on the skills and expertise and the generosity of over 150 individuals who graciously offer and volunteer their time, talents, and personal experiences to provide our members with comfort, support, and encouragement at a very difficult time and traumatic time in their lives. As a not-for-profit charitable organization, Wellspring Niagara receives no government funding, and we're not supported by any other cancer-related charity here in Niagara. We must rely solely, 100%, on the financial support and the generosity from the community we serve, the Niagara region. Every dollar is needed to help us continue to meet the needs of our growing membership and ensure that our programs and services remain free of charge. Research continues to be the hope of the future, but for many, living with cancer today is the challenge. Your support will help us with the resources we need to deliver on our promise of compassion and care. And you can be sure that every dollar raised in Niagara stays here to support the residents of the Niagara region. Together, we can make a positive difference in the lives of those who are living with cancer in their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Salsi, members of council, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to come before you in a slightly different vein. I've presented to you in the past about the Niagara Falls Community Fund. What we're hearing tonight is one of your residents, Alex, who is creating an endowment fund with the Community Foundation to support a region-wide organization that has impact in your community and other communities across Niagara. The principal will be held in perpetuity, and only the earnings on the fund will be used to support programs at Wellspring Niagara. And it's an open fund so that donors of any means, any size of donation, can make a gift to this fund in perpetuity. Alex, as you know, is a planner. Alex has been very detail-oriented in working with us on this arrangement, and it's been a treat to work with somebody who is so focused on how he wants to achieve his philanthropic intent. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure. I'm sure many of you know that the Community Foundation was formed as the vision of a Niagara Falls resident, Frank Branscombe, and I'm sure Frank would be really quite pleased to know how the different donors in Niagara are having an impact on their community. So thank you very much for giving me a bit of chance to talk about the foundation from this perspective.
Thank you. There may be some questions from members of council. Or Alex, are you through yet?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Many of you know my goal to run a marathon on every continent in the world, and this June I plan to conquer South America. The goal is to run the Easter Island Marathon, 42 kilometers over hilly terrain, past many of the 300 carved stone heads that dot that island. In order to do that, as Ms. Palmieri said, it's to set up a fund in perpetuity, the interest of which will go toward to help Wellspring and their programs. The challenge is to raise $10,000. All monies will be held, as I said, in perpetuity, and over the next couple of months I'll be approaching various businesses, my coworkers, friends, and many of you already know who I am because you've seen me before. By the numbers, I'll spend 16 weeks training, run more than 600 miles to get to the start line. I'll fly 7,000 miles to reach Easter Island, cross 2 continents, span 3 time zones, and that's just to start it. And why would I want to do all this? Part of it you've heard Anne speak, and it's because Wellspring gave me a safe place to express the fears that I had during my wife's battle for her life. And after her death in 2005, the bereavement support group at Wellspring, made up of men and women, gave me hope for the future. They set me on a path towards healing. And because of that, I've passed many milestones along the way. And I want to be able to ensure that other people have the benefit of the experience that I had. And so that can only happen if we make sure that there's a fund for the longevity of Wellspring. And I thank you for letting me share my story on the quest with you. Thank you.
And thank you for your commitment. I do have questions. Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, and I think it's a very honourable task that Mr. Herlovich is taking up, and I understand his passion for it. I guess what I'm wondering is whether or not there's going to be a website, say Support Alex or something like that, that people can go to in order to make donations, or are they just expected to contact yourself and make donations that way?
They could contact me. There is a website on the under the Niagara Community Foundation, so it's under their website, and you would have to enter in Wellspring Hope. If you enter in the name Wellspring, it will take you to the area in the charitable donations, and people can make donations by credit card online. As well, I'll be approaching people directly. Certainly we can. Any checks could be made out to the Niagara Community Foundation. They should be referenced Wellspring so that distinguishes it for that fund, and they can be mailed to 17 Queen Street, St. Catharines. It's the 3rd floor. I don't have the postal code, but anyway, we'll try and get the information out to everyone. And certainly we've worked on posters, and I'll be doing some door-to-door canvassing, door-to-door to businesses and desk-to-desk in City Hall.
Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, Your Worship, I was just wondering if we could help the cause by perhaps taking out an ad in the local newspaper to, I guess, publicize the fact that Mr. Herlovich is doing this on behalf of the city.
If it's the pleasure of council, we'd be glad to do that. We can make a motion, Councillor. Councillor Pietrangelo, would you like to make a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion, Your Worship, that we offer some publicity to Mr. Herlovich by way of the local newspaper, as well as by putting it on our city's website.
Okay, the seconder, Councillor Diodati. And any further discussion? Perhaps we can title it "See Alex Run." We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Motion is carried. I have Councillor Mays who wants to make a comment.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention too. I've kind of been involved with Wellspring, I guess, from the start, and I'd just like to congratulate the Mantini family, especially the sisters.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know. You should have brought all the rest of the girls here and sang a few songs for us, but they certainly put on a great show. Usually every Christmas around that time of year, and for benefit to Wellspring. And I just like to congratulate everybody on the hard work that they do for a very worthwhile cause. So thanks so much.
Congratulations. I think that's very fitting, Councillor Mays. I, too, do appreciate the Mantini sisters and their commitment and the losses that they've suffered as well, certainly with the families like Alex and the Mantinis and others who have experienced the need. And I wanted to commend all of you, including Liz and the Foundation. I certainly will be making my contribution. I hope the members of Council will follow through as well and make a commitment to you as well, Alex. So we wish you well in that regard. So thank you very much for being here tonight for your presentation.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Council. I can't do that much.
The next deputation, members of council, is from the Trails and Bikeway Committee. And this evening we have Lisa Wilson, who is the committee chair, who's going to update council about the Trails and Bikeways 2008 accomplishments and the upcoming 2009 plan. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Celsi, councillors and staff. My name is Lisa Wilson. I'm a member of the Trails and Bikeway Committee, speaking on behalf of my fellow committee members. It has been a long time since the Trails and Bikeway Committee has been in front of council. Many of us, like myself, are new to the committee. We would like to give you an overview of what we've been involved in recently. This past fall, we undertook a project with the Niagara Parks Commission to complete some trail restoration on the Whirlpool Trail. And if you don't know where that trail is, it's along the Niagara Parkway near the end of the Whirlpool Road. We contacted the Parks Commission in April, and our offer to assist was very well received with a tentative work date set for the fall. By July, we had met twice with the Parks, myself on behalf of the TMB, and my husband, Steve, on behalf of the Niagara Falls Fire Department. for site planning, manpower, and scheduling issues. Work on the trail started in September, and for the volunteers took place over 3 weekends. As a side note, when we approached the parks, they had been considering closing this trail due to the state of erosion and related vandalism issues. This trail is situated in a perfect spot, available parking, and a multi-use paved path at the trailhead. Below it connects up with other nature paths that run in several directions along the Niagara Gorge. The trail is heavily used by local hikers and fishermen. When needed, this trail is critical for carry-out rescues and or for gaining access to one of the 3 helipads below. Repairs to the trail would certainly benefit our residents and visitors, but the Niagara Falls Fire Department and EMS crews rely on the conditions of this trail too. The terrain poses repair difficulties due to the aggressive slope and limited access points. All tools and construction supplies were provided by the parks. They prefabricated 6 sections of wooden stairs weighing approximately 500 pounds per section. Large piles of crushed stone were staged at the top of the trail and also at the midpoint. To move the materials, a whole series of cables, pulleys, tractors, and backhoe were used by the parks crew. My husband recruited the majority of the volunteers from the fire department. We were all armed with shovels, rakes, and bug spray. Everyone was well fed thanks to the donations from Lococo's, Woody's Bakery, and the Victoria Avenue Tim Hortons. Day 1 for us consisted of repairs to the existing stairs, prying up the railway ties, infilling them with crushed stone, and shoring up the edges with larger rocks. 3 shovels of stone per bucket, 2 buckets carried per person, 6 to 8 stairs climbed per person, and 60 feet length of path. Niagara Falls firefighters, EMS, residents, and firemen worked so hard that we ran out of stone on the first day. This photo of the midway section was taken in early April, but it clearly shows how the old stairs and any footholds had become almost non-existent. When we visited the site in August again, it was in even worse condition, so much that someone had tied a series of ropes along the tree line in order to help them negotiate the climb to the top of the existing stairs. This is the spot where our main objective started, at the 60-foot mark. Besides the erosion to the path, there was some intentional damage to the transition landing, the last part of the existing stairs. The landing was repaired, and the installation of the new stairs were now to be located to the right of the old path. While our volunteers worked at repairing the upper stairs below us, the parks crew worked at staging more stone at the midway mark for us to use for the rest of the project. It was an impressive setup, and not hard to see that a lot of planning and work had involved before we arrived. This view is from the bottom of the path, showing the stairs in progress, and it should give you a better perspective of the terrain slope. While working, we did receive plenty of compliments and words of gratitude from many of the trail users. Occasionally, we were able to get them to lend a hand for a bit, or at least carry up an empty bucket. This shot shows all 70 stairs infilled and in use even before we leave the site for day. I can't express our gratitude enough for all of the work done by the Parks Commission staff involved, and especially to our volunteers. A lot of sweat equity went into this project. We wish to also thank Chester from Snap Niagara and Tony from the review for the good coverage before and after. Our committee would like to offer a dedication donation of a park bench and a bike rack for installation at the Whirlpool Trailhead. We think it is important to mark this joint effort and to acknowledge our thanks to the Niagara Parks Commission and to our volunteers. So what's next for the Trails and Bikeway Committee? Well, we plan to approach the Parks Commission to schedule more upgrades further down the path for this coming fall. The repairs needed to this section are not as extensive as this past project. Other upcoming events that the committee will be involved in are the 3rd Annual Worldwide Memorial Ride of Silence. This free ride is to honor cyclists that have been killed or injured while biking and to bring awareness that motorists and cyclists must share the road. We also plan on hosting a cycle safety clinic in the spring, participate more in the Canada Day celebrations, and also highlight some upgrades to our Step in the Right Direction walking maps. But enough about us for now. Let me take a moment to remind you all why trails and bikeways should remain high priority projects. Some facts from the Heart and Stroke Foundation prove why. Rates of overweight and obesity have been climbing steadily for the past 30 years. These rising rates are directly linked to the lack of physical activity widespread amongst Canadians. A large number of Canadian children do not get the levels of physical activity needed for healthy growth and development. Across Canada, only about 12% of trips to the grocery store, work, the library, and school are made on foot or by bicycle. Safety concerns keep 1 in 5 Canadians from walking and bicycling. This past week, I attended the Parks and Recreation Ontario Forum, and I learned of so many more reasons why we should be building our trails and bike lanes now. The buzzwords I heard throughout the forum were the built environment, holistic community, connectivity, and providing potential residents a quality urban design. This is why we are happy to hear that not all trails have been affected by budget cuts, and would like to state our support to the construction of the Palmer Avenue Trail. This trail has its positive points as a connection from our downtown area with the train and bike stations to the Clifton Hill area. Even more of a selling feature would be if it connected to a multi-use trail that continued along Victoria Avenue. Some details we'd like to highlight is that proper bike storage or racks should be installed in the municipal parking lot at Bender Hill, and that a pedestrian bridge crossing the 420 be an important consideration. So although we are excited about Palmer Avenue, we as a committee are extremely disappointed in the past and again present budget cuts affecting the development of the next phases of the Millennium Trail. We understand that these are difficult economic times, but it is especially important at a time like this to offer the citizens of our community more convenient, safe, healthy, and economic modes of transportation. We need to build our environment. One of the many reasons the Trails and Bikeway Committee chose to approach the Niagara Parks Commission about the whirlpool repairs is due to its close proximity to the approved Phase 3 of the Millennium Trail. Access from Phase 3 to Phase 4 is a natural progression, especially with the construction of the Bob Gale Complex Arena already underway, the possible Thorold Road extension, and because of all the positive downtown area improvements. These trails work towards the city's goals of connectivity, safety, and to the health benefits of our citizens. Phase 4, which is from Morrison to Thorstone Road, has once again fallen victim to budget cuts for this year. In light of this, we would like to make some recommendations to Council. One, that the city support our dedication donation of a bike rack and bike bench to mark our joint effort with the Parks Commission. 2, that the city be more diligent in enforcing bike lanes on any reconstruction of existing roads and or for new roads being developed. If infrastructure funds are available, use them to their full potential. 3, that the city create and implement a policy for connective trail construction when approving neighborhood developments. 4, that our city council follow the lead of Welland, St. Catharines, Grimsby, and Oakville by hosting a Bike and Walk for Life conference open to all committee and city employees. This workshop will educate us as to how the links of our environment, economic development, recreation, transportation systems, and personal and public health are vital to our city. And lastly, 5, that the city place newer, more modern bike racks in more locations around the city to encourage active transportation with less threat of property loss. We ask that you accept these recommendations.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Councillor Diodati.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Lisa, and the committee members from Trails and Bikeways for being here today. I'm the city's liaison on that committee. And a lot of effort goes into, someone had asked me before, what exactly does the committee do? And obviously with the efforts of the Fire Department and the Parks Commission, the committee does a lot, and especially with Lisa as the chair, she's done a great job at directing that they have a real purpose in mind, not just to have meetings for the sake of having meetings, but to actually make them productive. And there's no question at all that they improve the quality of life by fixing that trail that the parks were looking to shut down. And the first thing I would do, Your Worship, is make a motion that the recommendations, 5 recommendations I believe was it 5, be referred to staff for implementation. And in regard to the top of the trail where we want to put in the bike rack and the bench, that we approached the Parks Commission on a shared arrangement. I've already had some preliminary discussion with the parks, and apparently they do have a bike rack in their inventory, and it looks like they are willing to partner up with us to help share that expense. Of course, that the committee already has a budget that will more than adequately deal with the remainder of the cost. So I would first make the motion, Your Worship, that
Moved by Councillor Diodati, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo, that we adopt the recommendations made by the Bike and Trailways Committee. So we have a motion before us. Any comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. And one other thing that I'd like to refer to staff is I noticed in just recently a press release from Ottawa that the Treasury Board has committed $25 million to bolster recreation trails across Canada. I don't know specifically what the arrangements for those are, but they do include hiking, cross-country, and running trails that are to be jointly funded by the province, the municipality, and private groups. And I would move that staff pursue this, Your Worship, with the direction of extending and enhancing the trails that we have in the city.
Again, a motion by Councillor Diodati, seconded by Councillor Pietrangelo for Council's consideration. We do have some updated information that we were supplied with by the Federal Member's Office, Rob Nicholson, our Minister of Justice, and we were able to pass it on to staff, so they're working on that now. So I appreciate that, and the direction will be clearly made. Any other comments? Having seen none, sorry, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. And I guess I just, excuse me, wanted to extend a thank you to Mrs. Wilson and all her volunteers for improving the trail on the Niagara Parks Commission property. I know myself, my wife, and our kids, Your Worship, have frequented the trail both before the repairs were done and then after the repairs were done, and I can tell you that they were much needed and much welcomed as well. Your Worship, I understand that that we have on our books as well in 2009 to be moving forward with the Palmer Avenue Trail. I know that the Palmer Avenue Trail is a difficult one to go against because we are making that connection from the tourism core to our transportation nodes, be it our train station as well as our bus station, and also the downtown, Your Worship. But I can't help but want to implement Phase 3 of the Millennium Trail. I think that making the connection from the Niagara Parks Commission Trail and drawing it into our city, Your Worship, would allow people to see the benefits of having a trail that's non-intrusive, I guess, to other residents. And then subsequently, after that, we can implement Phase 4 that would go all the way down to Morrison Street. I know, Your Worship, that staff, as of right now, does have Phase 3 slated for 2011, and they're actually looking forward at going forward with Phase 4 before Phase 3. But I can't help but wanting Phase 3 first, which would link the Parks Commission Trail all the way into Thurlstone Road. I think it was a very appropriate name when we gave it the Millennium Trail. I wasn't sure if we were talking about the 2000 millennium or the 3000 millennium. So.
Well, perhaps we can have that debate when we get closer to it. So we do have a motion on the floor by, yes, you've actually, Councillor Diodati, Councillor Pietrangelo, and any other discussion on the motion? Having seen none, all those in favor, the motion is carried. I have comments from Councillor Fisher.
Thank you very much. I would just like to also add to your motion that when we do the lines on the road for the bikes, that we also put the print of the bike on the lines, because many people don't understand what those white lines are about, and we have no markings to show that it is a bike lane. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Council, Mr. Dren, do you want to address that, please?
Through the Mayor, many of the lines that are on the road, or many of the lanes we've designated, are sort of below the standard of what's required for a bike lane. What we've done is we've offset, narrowed the road by putting in the lines, but we really can't put the markings in many of the locations because they don't meet the standard required to do that. So what we're doing is providing an area for refuge for the bikes to travel along, and in those areas such as the newly constructed Kaler Road, we will actually put markings down and signs to designate it by bylaw.
So on that point, the white lines that are there and no markings, and they're not wide enough, well, what are they there for?
That's correct. They're not wide enough. They were put down to assist cyclists, but They were also there to accomplish narrowing the road and providing some form of traffic calming to slow traffic down when the bikes are traveling down the road.
So it's really false security.
Again, they weren't meant to be bike lanes per se, designated bike lanes. They were there to narrow the road and provide some area for bikes to travel down.
False security. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dren. Are there any other comments from members of council? If not, I'd like to extend my thanks, I'm sure, as well, to along with members of council, to all the members of the Trails and Bikeways Committee. Some who are with you this evening. Please extend our appreciation to them for making our city more healthy in terms of those who want to take advantage of the systems and in respect of the endeavors. I would like to acknowledge the work you do, and hopefully we can continue on with the commitment in the trails as you suggested. So thank you again for your presentation this evening. We've adopted the motion, Councillor. Okay, recommendation. Thank you again. Mr. Clerk, would you please introduce the next item on the agenda as well?
A public meeting is now being convened to consider a proposed amendment to the city zoning bylaw to permit a proposed 10-story, 126-room addition to the Fallsview Plaza Hotel. Notice was given by first-class mail in accordance with the Planning Act on Friday, March 6, 2009, and by posting a sign on the property in question. Anyone who wants notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw amendment to participate in any site plan process, if applicable, or preserve their opportunity to appeal to the Ontario Municipal Board shall leave their name on the sign-in sheets outside the council chambers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Afida. And at this time, I'm going to ask our planning director, Mr. Hurlovich, to explain the purpose and the reason for the proposed bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Your Worship. The property involved is on the west side of Fallsview Boulevard. It involves the Fallsview Plaza Hotel, which is pictured. It was formerly the Renaissance Hotel. Some people may be familiar with it by that name. And the intention is to build a 10-story addition on the north side, which would be between the Fallsview Plaza and the Hilton Hotel. And I pause here because it does show the relationship between the two buildings. The location of the property is identified as Parcel 1, which is the hotel site that I just mentioned. Parcel 2 is off-site parking, which serves the development. And Parcel 3 on Dunn Street is also off-site parking. The majority of that site, or about half of that site, is currently developed with a parking lot. There are plans, of course, and approvals which allow that parking lot to be expanded. This application involves both Parcels 1 and Parcel 3 because there would be some additional off-site parking provided on Parcel 3. The site plan for the application, the current structure is the portion of the building that's outlined with red hatch marks across it. So you can see the curved form of the existing building. To the left of the slide is the area of the current recreation complex that serves that hotel. There's another red line that extends on three sides of that property, so coming out into the parking lot on the top of the slide, to the left side, and to the bottom of the slide. That red line represents the approvals that this council gave in 2008. It provides for a 4 to 5 story podium. It depends if you're on Stanley Avenue side, it's 4 stories. If you're on Fallsview Boulevard, it's 5 stories. That provides for a new recreation complex on the top side of the slide, which is on the west of the hotel, 126 additional rooms on the south side of the hotel, and new entertainment and restaurant facilities on the Fallsview side of the hotel. The portion of the development that council is dealing with tonight then is the portion of the site plan that's the solid red color. And so we're focused on that. That is the 10-story portion. You can see that it's set back from the podium that comes out to Fallsview. And while we're on this slide, I also want to point out that there's a triangular area at the bottom right-hand corner, and that angle addresses the line that's mentioned in a letter from the Hilton Hotel. Vince DeCosmo wrote in expressing concern that the sight lines of their hotel at the Hilton not be blocked, and I have received an email from the architect Wayne Murray confirming that that angled line does represent the lines that the Hilton Hotel has expressed interest in. I've covered off some of this detail already. The applicants received approvals in 2008. They wish to retain those approvals. The proposal before you is for a 10-story hotel, 126 rooms, and to permit an additional 58 parking spaces to be provided on the Dunn Street lot. The official plan identifies this area as the Fallsview Subdistrict, even with a T. It permits up to 30 stories in height. The addition is 10 stories, so it certainly fits within that height limit. The proposal does meet some of the design guidelines of the official plan. It meets some of the criteria as well. There's the implementation handbook, which provides guidelines and direction to council on how these policies would be achieved. The hotel meets the design criteria for a positive building base, addresses wind mitigation, improved pedestrian environment, and the tower setback for the 10-story building. The area that it doesn't meet is the gap between the two towers. The guidelines suggest that there be a 25-meter separation between towers. That would be between the 10-story addition and the hotel. The Hilton Hotel is approximately 8 meters back from the property. The proposal in this development is proposing that there be only a 2-meter north yard setback. So together with the 8 meters from the Hilton and the 2 meters from this development, it achieves only 10-meter setback rather than the 25 meters. We're suggesting that the 2 rooms per floor above the podium, so floors 6 to 10, could lose 2 rooms. That would increase the setback to 6 meters for this property. So the 6 plus 8 on the Hilton would provide for 14 meters separation. It's still less than the guidelines, but the official plan does say provide for appropriate gaps. We believe that this would be acceptable because the building is not located in the first tier. That is, it's not the row of buildings right next to Queen Victoria Park. You can't actually see this 10-story addition to the Fallsview Plaza Hotel from Queen Victoria Park, and the gap will be exceeded above the 10 stories. So the existing Fallsview Plaza Hotel is 18 stories. So above 10 stories, the distance between the 18-story portion and the 36-story portion of the Hilton Hotel exceeds the guidelines. We have noted that the building doesn't provide any distinct architectural features or add to the skyline, but this can be resolved during the site plan process. The zoning of the property is currently tourist commercial. It does have special provisions to allow for the 18-story building. It does as well permit for the 4 to 5-story addition that I outlined. All of those are to be retained. The applicant is seeking to increase the height from 15.2 meters, 50 feet, for this new addition to 31 meters, 102 feet, to accommodate the additional 5 stories. It's a 10-story hotel, but we already have 5 stories approved for the podium, and it'll be 5 stories on top of that. The applicant has asked for 2 meters setback from the north side, where staff is recommending a 6-meter setback. The applicant's requesting additional 58 parking spaces be permitted off-site. There are some parking spaces to accommodate that without further site work, so that is acceptable. There's a Section 37 agreement in place for the parcel, which is tied to the form of the development. There are no further contributions expected from this development because they've already contributed to the streetscaping. Because it's only 10 stories, they wouldn't contribute other than streetscaping. So we just want to amend that agreement to reflect this addition. The site plan agreement for the hotel and the off-site parking will need to be updated to reflect this proposal as well and address stormwater servicing and a decorative fence next to the parking areas. As well, there'll be a need to update the traffic study. In conclusion, we found that the application does comply with the height policies of the official plan. Increasing the separation distance will reduce the wall of development impact. The development of the addition could have a distinctive architectural feature if which could be accomplished through site planning, and the increased distance separation of 6 meters would add to that northerly gap. Therefore, we are recommending the application to permit the 10-story addition and to provide for the off-site parking, but we are recommending that council seek a 6-meter setback from the north property line for the additional stories above 4. Those are the highlights of the application.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hurlowich. And once again, members of the public are advised that failure to make an oral or written submission at this public meeting will result in the Ontario Municipal Board dismissing any referral it receives. Failure to sign the sign-in sheets will result in staff rejecting an appeal as per Section 34, subsection 19 of the Planning Act. Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaw amendment. At this time, Council will hear from anyone other than the applicant who wishes to speak. Please come forward if you'd be kind enough to identify yourself for the record, and just note our 10-minute limitation on your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I live at Collins Drive, just at the end of that area. Our concern...
And your name, sir, please.
Sorry, my name is Jeff Hinks.
Jeff Hicks?
Hinks, H-I-N-C-K-S.
Thank you. Well, proceed.
No, there's a lot of kids in that area. Kids like playing in that field right there, and we're just more concerned about and a lot of people walk to work through there and cut through. Kids that live in that townhouse complex off of Dunn cut to the schools there as well, and that's going to be a shame if you have to walk a long way around if they're going to make that into a parking area.
Mr. Hinks, I'm confused. What field are you referring to? The applicant was talking about the Fallsview Plaza Hotel, but you're talking about the other parcels. Do you want to qualify that, please?
That's right. We're talking about the parking area.
I'm sorry?
The parking part?
Parking area, okay. All right, so the parcel 2, is that correct? Parcel 3? Yes, okay, sorry. That's all right, sorry.
And we're, just wondering about the cars coming in and out of there all the time. Is it going to be manned by a security because of car alarms going off? Like, we're concerned about that type of stuff. Who's going to come and get that car and shut the alarms off if the alarms are going off?
So it's fully fenced, as you're well aware, right? Is that the area you're talking about?
Well, we don't know. Like, the parking area that they park in now is fully fenced in. But with that additional parking spots now?
Well, we'll ask, I think they're taking a portion of that, but we'll ask that to be clarified at the time they make their submission. Is there anything else you'd like us to address?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Is there anyone else other than the applicant who wishes to make comments this evening? Once again, is there anyone else other than the applicant for the third time? Okay, we'll proceed on, then council will now hear from the applicant or his representative. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We would like to first begin by acknowledging and thanking Messrs. Hurlovich, Meck, and Bryce of the Planning Department for their diligent work on the processing of this application and for their kind and cooperative assistance throughout the process.
Yes. Ms. Gilberti, if I just interrupt you, we all know who you are, but for those watching
I apologize. Italia Gilberti, Broderick and Partners,
thank you.
Solicitor for the applicants. I also have here Carmen Menichella, one of the principals of the applicant. We would also like to thank the DeCosmo family for their guidance in the design of the proposal. Our clients and members of the DeCosmo family have met many times to discuss this proposal and design it in a manner that is conducive to the needs and concerns of both parties. We believe this application is the result of the balance of various interests, which will complement the existing block development, will enhance the pedestrian experience, and most importantly, will contribute significantly to the public realm. We have read the staff recommendation report, and while we agree with its recommendation to approve our client's application, we disagree with the subject to or condition attached in Section 8 of the recommendation. This condition would require the applicant to provide a 6-meter setback from the north property line for the addition above 4 stories. This would result in a loss of 2 rooms per floor and would make the project economically not feasible to construct. The owners of the abutting hotel development to the north, as I mentioned, the Hilton Hotel, have submitted 2 letters of support for the application, which were provided to the planning department. I don't know if you've received them.
Yes, we have.
Both of them?
We have the first one dated April 3rd. Is there another one?
That would be the second one. The
Okay.
first one was dated February the 6th.
Do we have that yet? I'm not sure. Okay.
I have extra copies.
Okay.
This application is the result of numerous months of discussion and compromise. The abutting owner to the north, which is most affected by this proposal, is not concerned with a smaller gap provided. In fact, in the letter dated April the 3rd, there was an issue raised about the protection of sight lines, and I have received confirmation by the project architect as of late this afternoon that those sight lines have been provided and protected. The remaining owners of the lands next located to the subject lands, being to the south and to the west, are the applicants and therefore support the application. Niagara Falls View Casino Resort is located on the lands to the east, which are located on the escarpment and do not have any views of the falls or sky views compromised at all by this proposal. The subject lands are not located on the first tier, as noted in the staff report, and therefore the proposed hotel addition will not be visible from Victoria Park and will not add to any wall effect. Although we are most aware that the flexible design guidelines recommend a gap of 25 meters between buildings, and this proposal provides a gap of 10 meters, there is no party negatively impacted by the proposal. Furthermore, in the very recent past, Council has approved an application for a 30-story hotel proposal with a similar or even smaller gap between 2 buildings. For these reasons, we trust that you will agree with our request to delete Condition A from your approval of this application. With respect to the concerns of Mr. Hinks, you will note that he has submitted a letter of objection dated March 20th. Unfortunately, he is mistaken in his interpretation of the application. Firstly, this application is to link off-site parking for the proposed addition on the parking lot fronting on Dunn Street, which has already been approved and built, so it's already located within the fenced area. Secondly, the field to which Mr. Hinks refers is located partly on the remaining lands owned by one of the applicants, and which has already been approved for use as a parking lot with conditions, and which has not yet been constructed. But this application will not be placing any parking on that field. For this reason, we do not believe that there is any issue with respect to the existing parking lot being used for off-site parking with this addition. In conclusion, we kindly request that you approve our client's application as it has been submitted and delete Condition A from the staff recommendation report from your motion to approve.
Thank you for the qualification, Ms. Gilberti, and appreciate that. Are there any questions from members of council further to Ms. Gilberti's presentation? If not, having seen none, we'll proceed on. Then the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is now concluded. The pleasure of council. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. I would like to the council approve the zoning bylaw amendment application to permit a 10-story addition to the Falls View Plaza Hotel and to permit additional off-site parking subject to, but I'd like to delete Section A.
Okay. Maybe we should qualify that as well. Ms. Gilberti, if I may ask, before we ask, well, let's get a seconder. Is there a seconder to that? Councilor Peter Angelo. To qualify the setback then, so there's no confusion with regard to that happened earlier this year, could you qualify what your applicant's intentions are in terms of the setback so the council can make their decision on that basis?
The application required, or the application as submitted, provides a 2-meter setback from the north property line. The staff report required or recommended a further 4 meters for a total of 6 meters. We would like to only provide the 2-meter setback from the north property line.
Perhaps, Councilor Fisher, you can incorporate that so there's no confusion by staff.
That's exactly what I'd like to do. Thank you.
So that approved of the seconder, okay? Any discussion or comment? Councillor Wing.
I'd just like to note that I can support this for 3 reasons. It's not in the first row. It's not going to contribute to the wall development, which is something I've always been very concerned about, but if it's not contributing, that mitigates that for me. And as Mr. Hrdovich also pointed out, the gap is going to be exceeded above the 10th floor, so you lose some in one area, gain some in the other. I just wanted to note as well, though, that among the correspondence, there was in our handouts 2 letters, one from a Jason Webb and one from Nadine Webb. They live on Dunn Street, and they were concerned, and they wrote very eloquently about concerns with Nadine Webb mentioned the valet drivers and the problems with them cutting cars off, cutting pedestrians off, racing, speeding, passing illegally. So I'm hoping that this can be addressed. And Jason Webb wrote very eloquently about the impacts on the wildlife that lives in that field. But I'm not insensitive to their concerns, but I think there's nothing we can do because it is already that the field they speak of, even though it doesn't apply to this particular application, it's already zoned for a parking lot. Our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do to preserve it in its natural state, unfortunately. So I'd just like to note that we have read their letters, but unfortunately we can't do anything.
Thank you. Councillor Maves.
Yes. No, my only concern was, and of course the only person involved here is the owner of the Hilton, and it seems he's written a letter of approval. I'd just like to ask Mr. Hrdovich, is this a serious diversion from our regular bylaws on this?
Mr. Hrdovich?
Breaking any great rules here?
Well, it affects really only 5 stories of the building. The podium, as you're aware, can be 4 to 5 stories by our guidelines and go property line to property line. So basically we're talking about the 5 stories that would be above the podium. So it's actually a relatively small amount. Again, because of that angled line from the street, there will be a perception that there's a gap. It's at the back of the hotel, away from the street, where the buildings come closest together. So again, it's not a serious break from that. We note in our report that, again, as Alderman or Councillor Wing has said, it's not first tier, it can't be seen from the park, and we really don't feel like it's going to contribute to the wall of buildings. So, no, we're obliged to bring to your attention that it doesn't meet your guidelines. Is it a major breach? I don't believe it is.
Okay. Any other questions by members of council before we call a vote? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Ms. Gilberti. Appreciate your attendance. Members of council, I want to begin this evening by offering condolences to the family of Mr. Roger Pigeon of our Niagara Falls Fire Prevention Office on the passing of his mother, Rose. Our thoughts go out to your family, Mr. Pigeon, as you deal with your sad loss, and we offer you our deepest sympathy. And as we move on this evening, I am pleased to inform council members that I have confirmed an upcoming meeting with John Baird, the Federal Minister of Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Look forward to being able to have some important discussions about critical infrastructure funding and for a number of projects locally, as well as to convey the concerns of the Ad Hoc Railway Relocation Committee's request to work with CN Rail to reroute the CN line that bisects our city. I'm hoping to invite Mr. Baird to our city to see firsthand the issue that we have with the bisecting rail lines. The committee has been doing exceptional work, and we're at a point where we've met with our federal member of parliament, and we're hoping that the minister will be able to attend here as well to see firsthand the concerns. We're delighted as well recently to hear the confirmation that GO Transit will be coming to Niagara. We've been in ongoing discussion vis-a-vis our business development office and other levels of government for some time. This recent announcement will substantiate the transportation link between Niagara and Toronto, with 9 trips each way planned each weekday. This is a good start, and this means that we can now work with GO Bus to establish a location as well for GO Bus and park and ride locations in Niagara Falls, and provide an easier access for travelers to and from Niagara Falls to Burlington and on to Toronto. Through the Federal Government of Canada's New Horizons for Seniors program, I am pleased to announce that the British Canadian Veterans Association in Niagara Falls has received a $25,000 grant to help local seniors acquire computers, develop computer skills, and connect with family and friends via the internet. The pilot project in our city will enable eligible seniors to receive a free computer computer training, and funding towards the internet access. As well, as you all know, we are honored to have been named a celebration city to host the Olympic Flame during the Olympic Torch Relay later this year. In fact, on December 20th, the 2010 Olympic Torch will be carried by thousands of Canadians of all ages and backgrounds, reaching people in every corner of our nation. It is my hope that many of our own residents will carry the flame through our community, and this will be our opportunity to showcase Niagara Falls to the world, and I encourage you to be part of it. I wanted to advise people that they could visit the appropriate website to apply to be a torchbearer through the websites www.icoke.ca or www.rbc.com//carry the torch for the opportunity to become a carrier. Olympic moments are unique and diverse and personal, so the relay will celebrate achievements large and small, and I hope that many members of our community will consider applying to become a torchbearer, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'd like to continue as well by highlighting the success of the recent fundraiser. I want to acknowledge the Project Share fundraiser that saw Danny Z's entertain hundreds of members of our community at Kingston College last Wednesday. I'd like to congratulate Councillor Jim Diodati and the hardworking team at Project Share for their successful efforts to execute another excellent fundraiser. This event was great fun for all in attendance, and I believe it raised in excess of $22,000. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing how this event evolves and grows in future years. As well, I want to acknowledge the efforts of our Parks and Staff Recreation Department, along with our Director, Denise Morrissey, for hosting the Parks Ontario Conference held in Niagara Falls last week, where I believe over 350 people attended from across the province to allow us to showcase our city, and in particular the McBain Centre, where some functions were held. Bringing these people together in Niagara Falls was a great effort on behalf of our Parks and Rec Department, and I thank the Director and those people involved for their support. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to some upcoming events. The Docks on Ice hockey tournament, coordinated by Heart Niagara, will be held here in Niagara Falls April 16th to 18th. This is the 27th annual tournament, which will attract over 800 doctors from across the province. And this year they're going to feature medical student division, which will be competing in the same group. All proceeds from the 2009 tournament will benefit the Healthy Heart Schools program, so we wish them great success and great enjoyment in our city as they compete amongst the doctors. This Wednesday will mark the launch of our exciting Schools in Bloom competition this year. We're very proud of the work that students in Niagara Falls do each year to beautify their surroundings, learn about horticulture, and raise the environmental awareness in our community. I'm looking forward to attending the opening ceremonies with Councillor Victor Pietrangelo and Councillor Janice Wing at St. Paul High School later this week. The annual Stamford Centre Volunteer Firefighters Easter Egg Hunt will take place at Fireman's Park on Good Friday, April 10th, and this is always an outstanding free community event hosted by the SCVFA, and we look forward to the children and the families who are going to participate in the egg hunt again this year. I want to advise people that the first hunt kicks off at 11 a.m. at Fireman's Park, so we'll look forward to seeing as many of those who wish to attend. We also welcome a local author, Cara Bartley, back to Victoria Avenue branch of the Niagara Falls Public Library on Saturday, April 18th from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. for the book signing of her newest release, Call of Ed Hara. Cara's previous novels included The Siamese Mummy and The Unearthlings, and I invite residents to attend again and to meet Cara at the Public Library on April 18th at 11 o'clock. On Sunday, April 19th, the Niagara Falls MS Walk will take place starting at Sacred Heart Catholic School in Chippewa, and I encourage residents to participate, to raise pledges, and to walk in this year's fundraising event. The opening ceremonies begin at 9 a.m. on April 19th, and that concludes my remarks for this evening. Move on to communications, if I may. The first item is the letter from the Honourable David Kaplan, Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, responding to Council's request to appear at a deputation meeting before Council. Pleasure of Council, Mr. Clerk. Any comments?
I don't see him here.
Yes, he's not here. Okay. For the information to receive and file, moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Maves. All those in favour? Motion is carried. We have a request from the Rotary Club of Niagara Falls Sunrise with regard to the annual Rib Fest, requesting that the Rib Fest be declared as a community festival, requesting that the noise bylaw be extended to 11 p.m., and requesting that permission be given to directional signs to be erected. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Carrio. Any comments? Councillor Pietrangelo?
Is that the recommendation under communications?
Yes. Okay. No further questions. All those in favour? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Number 3, the Celebrate Old Downtown requesting a grant equal to various fees associated with Springlicious and the extension of the noise bylaw for the consideration of council. Yes, Councillor Diodati. Move the recommendation by Councillor Diodati, second by Councillor Thompson. Yes, Mr. Clerk.
I assume you're moving the request. We're not recommending, we're asking.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Any comments or questions? Councillor Wing.
Just to get, what's exactly the motion?
It's moving the request that they have made, that we have here in writing.
Okay, are we going to do this for other festivals?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm aware of 2 other festivals, street festivals being planned. One is, I'm not sure if it's past the talk stage. The other one, there's been, significantly underway. Do we have a line in this year's budget to fund these festivals?
Mr. Iafita?
Through your worship, we're assuming that what the request is related to those fees, which we estimate at this point in time is about $7,700. It's outlined in the attached information. Do we have a specific account for it? No.
Okay, I've sorry.
So where is the money going to come from?
That would be a question, I guess, for our finance people to answer.
Okay.
Do you have a question for
Yes,
finance?
yes, yes. For this and other street festivals that come forward.
We haven't had any of the requests yet, so we'll have to deal with
No,
those
but when
issues.
I'm assuming that we're going to treat all areas of the city equally, and if somebody in Chippewa comes forward and wants a street festival there, we're going to do the same thing, right?
If this motion passes,
Okay, so we're setting the precedent here.
if it passes.
Okay, can I ask then through you to finance where the money's coming from?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harrison?
Some of these costs are fees that are waived, so that would be, they're not really a cost, they're a waived fee, so it's just a lost revenue opportunity. So those are some of them. Some of them are staff time, which once again are not, they are in the budget if they happen to come in during the day. If they're on the weekend, that would be an increase in the overtime. And any other direct costs that were actually out of pocket would come from the council. Council has in a certain amount that they can waive for grants, miscellaneous grants.
I'm not prepared to support things that will be out of pocket. I mean, things that are already, we're just forgoing fees, or if it's crews that are already working, that's one thing, because it's not extra costs to the taxpayer. I'm not prepared to support extra costs for any of these festivals.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannoni and Councillor Carrier.
And my question on that is, are we approving the $7,750 on things that are we're not writing checks for, it's just it's in kind? Or are we also approving, because it's the next one that bothers me, in addition to the request above, there are also possible fee waivers that may be requested in an event the event does not get provincial funding. And there's $29,000 there, and that includes paying for the main stage, the fencing, the portable washrooms, the regional police, and private security. Are we passing that $29,000 too? Because if we are, we're not. Because it does say if they don't get it, by passing this report, does this make us have to pay for it?
Councillor Diodati?
Yes, Your Worship. The motion is for the costs that we know that we have, and obviously if they have further costs, they'd have to come to this council and deal with it then.
Okay.
So it's just the $7,750. Okay.
Motion. I have Councillor Carrier.
My comment was going to be I'll support the motion, but with the understanding that everybody that comes after this, we're not going to be picking and choosing. If someone else comes for the same type of thing, that we're going to have to approve it as well. And maybe we should have a policy to go back, and if that's what we want to do, maybe we should change our policy and take away the fees if different BIAs come to us and ask us for money. Because I'm not going to support this one and then deny others. So if this is going to be the way our council is going to go, I'll support this. If the council is going to do this just for this one, and when the next one comes, not support it, then I wouldn't support this one. So I'm assuming that we're making a change in policy.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Pietrangelo, you want to address that?
Not quite that in specific, Your Worship, but just a question, I guess, to yourself, to Mr. Arfita. What was the total amount that we gave Springlicious last year? Was it $160,000?
That wasn't just for Springlicious. That was for the various downtown festivals. Last year, we estimate the cost conservatively at about $170,000.
Yeah, Your Worship, I mean, to go from $170,000 all the way down to $7,000 really doesn't seem to be that much of an ask. I think that the Springalicious event was quite a success. I think we had a lot of local residents there last year, and I think that they'll be more than happy to attend again this year.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Ioannoni?
Thank you. Just on the note, because we're dealing with something in downtown, Mr. Burton asked Mr. Grun when he was here to provide the financial statements for the BA. I was wondering, and he had said yes, he would the next day. Has that been provided to Mr. Burton? Thank you.
Okay. That was another matter we can deal with, but separately. But Councillor Wing, you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, the other thing is we were pretty gung-ho on charging out-of-town baseball teams user fees, and yet it's noted in the staff report that last year 20 of the 28 vendors were from out of town. So if we're considering waiving fees for out-of-town vendors, I mean, to me that's almost a slap in the face to anybody who lives here and pays their vendor's fee to just let.
I think this year is a bit different. They have people now who probably want to be there, and they're local that want to participate. So I think last year they had a challenge getting those people. This year they're going to be more local people involved.
So are we only waiving the fees for the local people, or
no? It's clear. It's waiving them all. So
waiving for out of town as well.
That's the motion that's on the floor.
You know, I'm sorry, I can't support that.
Okay, that's fine. Ready? Any other comments? Having seen none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 1 opposed. Well, no, thank you very much. The motion's carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Mide Bistro requesting that the costs associated with the Sidewalk Cafe be waived for this year. Pleasure, Council. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, through you to whoever is handling this, I guess Mr. Dren, you know, what is the difference between this and some of the areas in Victoria Centre, Clifton Hill this year, where there's a request to fill in the space? Are those people aren't requesting the payment of the fees for parking, are they?
Mr. Dren?
Through the Mayor, the difference between those requests and this request is this is a temporary occupancy of the metered spaces that have been budgeted for within our revenues. Secondly, we get many requests throughout the year, and this is how they're handled throughout the city. The other ones, like Clifton Hill and Victoria Avenue, you know, I'd have to look back at those reports to see how we handled the revenue portion of those things, to see whether there was compensation or.
I think the difference in those, I think they paid for the permanent, and it was permanent construction and filling in the spaces. Maybe this is something that should go back and see if this is what we're going to do here. I don't see the sense in taking it in and out if they're going to have, certainly it's not going to be used in the wintertime, but a wider sidewalk there is not going to be a problem, and rather putting it in and taking it out every year, by the time you figure out 2 or 3 years, you've paid for it on a permanent basis. I'd like to have further clarification. I don't have a problem. In fact, they say that it's only used 50% of the time. So the figure that you have here of $1,700 plus is probably not very accurate.
Basically, the figure is based on the full use for the entire day. So in other words, even though it may not be used on certain days 100% of the time, what it's there is the opportunity is lost for anyone else coming to that parking space and then utilizing it. So basically what we've covered off is the entire duration of the day and said, okay, that's multiplied times the 75 cents an hour. So that's how it's calculated. We use that throughout the city, and we've been using it for approximately 10 years like that.
Can you tell me the last time you drove downtown and you saw all the parking taken up in the lots and on street at the same time?
The Queen Street area is actually quite well used. Again, the numbers for this for these spaces are approximately $900 to $1,000 that it generates per the time period we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, the point I'm making is, you know, we have an opportunity that we've been talking about for years about revitalizing our downtown, and every time, and I get a chuckle out of the discussion about the grants to making something happen downtown. You know, we have a small window of opportunity, and every time this comes up, we always try to squeeze the door and shut them out. Next year, we'll probably be talking totally different. The place will be filled up with the taps and the buttery and the rest of them, and we won't be having this discussion, or we'll be having a different discussion about what are we going to do with all those vacant buildings. We have an opportunity here, and I don't have any problem supporting them in the short term. And it's not just the downtown area. I would do the same for the Main and Ferry. And certainly the tourist industry, we've put in permanent filled-in spaces in at least a half a dozen places, haven't we, Mr. Carrier?
I'll tell you what, as soon as I get my chance to talk, I'll tell you who paid.
Oh, I know who paid. They paid. And maybe that's a way to do it, so we do it permanently. So anyway, I like the idea of trying to support them in this time of need for revitalization.
Are you making that motion, Councillor?
And if there's any problem with this, I think all of these things should be referred to the committee. We got one, I guess, before the next council meeting. Which if we're going to have, let's at least have a full discussion. This report on the spring list is quite confusing. You got to really decipher all of the different amounts involved to determine what the whole amount is. And then when they threw in the $29,000 at the end, I got kind of nervous with that too. But let's try and help them out and get through this next year and see where we stand.
Well, Councillor, we're going to be moving the pay and display machine. So do you want to just incorporate in your motion the closing up of those spaces?
Sure.
So Councillor Thompson makes the motion to close up those spaces. And is there a seconder? Councillor Diodati? Okay. Now, is there an issue with regard to that, Mr. Dren? Is there any notice required?
Sorry, I really don't understand. By closing them up...
Just we're going to eliminate those spaces, and Councillor Thompson's motion would be to extend that out to those spaces.
So you lose the space.
That's
waive the fee, and waive the fee, correct? Yeah. Okay. Yes, Mr. Clerk?
Yeah, but the request is just to waive the fee, plain and simple. And I think
Councillor Thompson talked about the going in and out each year. Councillor, is that what you want to address?
I'd like to have a report back. Let's get straight. We'll waive the fee to get by the summertime, but before we do that, I'd like to know what we can do on a permanent basis rather than pulling them in and pulling them out. I think if they're going to have a cafe there, let's have a cafe there.
That's the question we're clarifying. Mr. Clerk?
Well, you had a report last year to that effect, and we can dig it out and email it to you.
That's great. So we have a mover and a seconder, Councillor Diodati. Any further discussion? Councillor Wing.
I'm concerned about the precedent we're setting. The staff memo says the current fee structure has been in place for many years, is applied consistently in all areas throughout the city. Applying an exception here would open the doors to those who wish to challenge these fees in the future. If we do it for here, then why don't we do it for the businesses on Victoria Avenue? I mean, I'm sure they're paying a lot of taxes, and they could be struggling this year, and they might want to challenge us as well. I mean, if we do this here, then I would feel obligated to support them if they came into us and said, hey.
Well, members of council, my understanding is that, first of all, they're still paying for the leased space. What we're dealing here with now is the parking areas that we're talking about eliminating, because we're talking about going in and out off the sidewalk. And Mr. Clerk, do you want to address something?
Yeah, no, I just want to confirm that the applicants who are here in the audience and are willing to speak to the matter are willing to pay the regular sidewalk cafe fee, which people in Victoria Centre.
That's right. Sure. But still,
but this, what we're talking, the request is for the lost income to the city from the parking.
Okay. And in other cases, I don't think those lost parking places apply, other than when they take up a space for a motorcycle or a car. Councillor Maves.
I was just going to say, I think we should support as many of these cafes as we can. If this will bring people out to have dinner and enjoy it in the summertime, I think we have to support this sort of thing because, as I say, as Councillor Thompson said, in these economic times and that, we've got to do everything we can to get people out to have dinner at our restaurants and enjoy everything we have. As far as the parking is concerned, if they want to eat there bad enough, they'll find a parking spot around the corner or another meter or something. So I can support that.
Okay. Councillor Diodati.
Yeah, and obviously I too second it. It seems that downtown is becoming a bit of a victim of their own success. You could have shot a cannon down there a few years ago, and today it's a little more robust, it's more exciting, and then with what's coming this year, it's getting really exciting. And I think these businesses are new, they're fragile, they're incubating. I mean, we have to do what we have to do to support them, so they'll be viable for the long term. And I absolutely 100% support this. I think I think long term this is going to spread. I hope we get a lot more requests, because if we can get people out of their cars and participating in the community, that's exactly what we want.
Okay. Appreciate the comment. We'll call the vote then. All those in favor, please hold your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one opposed.
Yeah, I support the staff recommendation.
Okay, all right, thank you. Motion is carried. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Next item on the agenda is the Canadian Forces recruiting request permission to fly a CF-18 Canadian fighter aircraft for the Niagara Falls 2008 Canada Day celebrations. Moved by, I heard from somebody, Councillor Iononi, seconded by Councillor Fisher. Again, for the recommendation of approval of council. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next, we have the Niagara Child and Youth Services Foundation requesting that the week of May 2nd to 9th, 2009 be proclaimed as Children's Mental Health Week in the City of Niagara Falls. Moved by Councillor Iononi.
Second, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, I'll just read them off, though, Mr. Councillor Thompson, but we have a motion to approve all three. Councillor Iononi, is that fine with you? Okay. The next one is to, by the Interior Coaches Week, requesting the time period April 18th to 26th be proclaimed as Ontario Coaches Week in the City of Niagara Falls, and the third by the Canadian Mental Health Association requesting that May 4th to 10th, 2009 be proclaimed as Mental Health Week in the City of Niagara Falls, and that council support a flag raising during that week. So we have all those three to deal with. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, is there anything additional for council's consideration this evening?
No communications.
Thank you. We have ratification of Community Services Committee actions. We're going to call on the chair, Councillor Iononi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The following items are to be ratified from tonight's meeting of the Community Services Committee. The minutes of March 23rd, 2009 meeting be approved. Under reports, MW 2009-21, the DWQMS operational plan with presentation, that City Council endorse the Drinking Water Quality Management System operational plan, and that staff be authorized to make the appropriate application to the Ministry of the Environment prior to May 1st, 2009. BS 2009-01, house moving concept in partnership with Niagara Regional Housing, Niagara Region, Niagara Catholic District School Board, Ed and Ruth Ann Newestake, and the City of Niagara Falls, that the City provide grants equal to land costs, various permits costs, and to assist in dealing with hydro and the Niagara Regional Police. R 2009-14, recreation property and building end use update, that the former recreation building be appraised and put on the open market with a reserve bid with notice of the future intent to designate. And under MW 2009-18, Front Street flooding remedial works, that City Council authorizes staff to proceed with the installation of sewage ejector pumps and new sewer laterals at the 5-unit townhouse development on Front Street, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Iononi, seconded by Councillor Maves. Any further discussions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. The ratification of Corporate Services Committee actions. I'm going to call on the chair, Councillor Victor Pietrangelo.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was one item that we dealt with under 2009 budgets. It was the general purposes budget, and we concluded that staff reduced the capital contributions as outlined in the general purposes budget presentation in the amount of $458,810, as well as staff provide a report to council on the actual cost of animal control services for consideration in the 2009 general purposes budget, and that council defer the passing of the 2009 general purposes budget until the next corporate services meeting. That was the general purposes budget, Your Worship, and also that council defer the remainder of the agenda until after the council agenda that's here tonight, Your Worship, and I would support that. Yes.
This evening, correct, as opposed, that's fine. So defer till after this meeting, correct? Is there a seconder? Councillor Diodati, thank you. Any comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. I'm going to call on ratification of in-camera recommendations. Ask the clerk to read those, please.
Just on that last item, when are you proposing to go back into corporate services?
After this meeting.
Well, I'd suggest you do it now as opposed to closing the actual council meeting and going back into corporate services.
Well, Councillor Pietrangelo, your pleasure. Okay, we can do that at the end of the business section of this meeting, right?
We'll do it now.
What do you want? We have other items to deal with. I can step down from the chair, Councillor. Would you like to do that now? Per the pleasure of council. Well, the clerk suggesting we continue on at this point with the.
I thought we put that off to the next meeting.
Yeah, I was under the assumption you put it off to the next meeting.
Councillor Pietrangelo made it his motion. So do you want to deal with it this evening or pass it on?
Worship, I think if you ask staff, there's some information that they'd like to present to council, and they think that council should really be given this information tonight, Your Worship. Whether or not we go on and have a lengthy discussion or even make any decisions, we can defer all that to the next meeting. But I think staff really wants to make their presentations to council tonight, Your Worship.
So if you could qualify that, then we'll have the staff make their presentation with no other further action required after that?
That's fine, Your Worship.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
Members of council, is that your pleasure? Okay, when we conclude our meeting, we'll do that. Okay? We want to conclude the business section. We'll do it before the bylaws. Okay? So all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now, the consent agenda, I have the clerk.
In-camera.
I'm sorry, in-camera ratification. Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
One item, Your Worship, council recommend, or in camera, the recommendation was that the agreement of purchase and sale for a portion of Murray Street Parts 1 and 7 for $53,750 be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement of purchase and sale.
Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Maves. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and I'm advised that item PD 2009-27 should be dealt with separately. Mr. Clerk, you want to deal with that?
Yes, Your Worship. We put that on the consent agenda, but it's actually asking for for some direction from council, so it should be dealt with separately.
Okay. For the benefit of the council, Councillor Wing.
Yes, I will move that, let me just find it here, that council approve the Municipal Heritage Committee's recommendation that the Jollycut Pathway be designated as a cultural heritage landscape, and it should be as an evolved cultural heritage landscape, which is essentially the same thing as what the committee recommended in 2002 when they recommended it be designated as a natural heritage feature, and that that the council forward the comments from the committee to the architect who's completing the landscape plan.
Okay. We have a motion by Councillor Wing. Is there a seconder to the motion? Councillor Pietrangelo. Any qualification required? Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Just with regard to the timing of the designation, if you look in the conclusion of the report, staff is suggesting that it's a second sentence, designation of the Jollycut as a cultural heritage landscape could occur following the design and reconstruction process as defined as the defined landscape. I just need some direction from Councillor Wing what her intention is.
Councillor Wing?
It's not my intention, it's the committee's intention that I'm bringing forward. The intention was that it be designated now as an evolved landscape.
I'm not sure if that's going to create a procedural issue. Councillor Pietrangelo?
I thought that it was not.
Okay, so we don't have a seconder now. Is there a seconder to Councillor Wing's motion that this Jollycut be designated before the work is completed? There's no seconder. We'll move on then. Have a motion, please. Councillor Pietrangelo? Pardon? No, we're still dealing with this matter. Councillor Wing.
Maybe we should defer this and have the committee come in and speak to it, because there's actually another matter that they want to come in and speak to as well. The committee's been trying since January to get the matter of the Oswald House fence onto council's radar, and the last motion, which was passed at the February 25th meeting, was that the stone wall and fence situated on the city's road allowance be restored in its current location. The committee has been trying to get Jollycut forward for a while. It's been trying to get the Oswald House fence forward for a while. They wanted to come in and speak to the Oswald House fence. So we may as well get them both scheduled at the same time so the committee can send representatives. And
that's the pleasure of council. Make the motion, please.
Sure, that is my motion.
Moved by Councillor Wing that they be invited to make a deputation of council. Second by Councillor Iononi. Any discussion further by members of council? Having seen none, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Please hold your hands up. 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? 1. Okay. Fine. The motion is carried. So, Mr. Clerk, can we deal with the balance of that issue?
What issue?
The consent agenda, I guess. Yes. Move the consent agenda.
Yeah, I have just one question.
Okay. Wait a second. Who's the mover of the consent agenda? Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Mays.
No, I wanted to question something else.
Okay. On which item, Councillor?
On the arena rates and fees, just want some clarification.
Do you want it lifted, or do you want a question? Why don't we just we'll pass a motion to deal with the balance. You can ask the question. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, second by Councillor Iononi. Now I'll entertain questions. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Maves.
Same question through you to the Director of Recreation. 3% is pretty normal. How do we compare with some of the other rates throughout the region? Are we
We're pretty well in line. We're second for adult prime, so we're one of the highest, but we also have the most arena pads. Where we're much cheaper than many other of our comparative cities is youth prime. And I don't know the fee right off the top of my head from last year, but you can see what we're recommending for this year. So
we're
we're
second with the adults.
yes.
The young citizens
We're still quite a bit under even, say, St. Catharines and some other communities.
Okay, Councillor Maves.
I was just wondering if we had any consultation with the users. I know we ran into little problems with the ballparks, so just wondering, have we had consultation?
Yes,
With
Ms.
respect
Morrissey.
to the ice rates, every year we bring you this report. We're pretty. This is a pretty standard approach for us for a 3% increase. We do have our ice allocation meeting coming up. We do try to embed the fact that our prices have gone up, our labor has gone up 3%, our utilities have gone up, and we do try to stick with inflation. We know we're a little higher, but we've gone 3% usually every single year. And as Councillor Thompson asked for clarification, our youth prime is much lower than some other communities, so our subsidization in our arenas is quite high.
Okay. Councillor Carrio.
Thank you, Your Worship. Any question relating to anything on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Under statement of remuneration and expenses for city councillors, do we have any limits on our other expenses or expense allowances? Is there any limits? Or I just for clarification.
Who can answer that question? Mr. Burton? Yes?
Through the chair, we do have some limitations in the fact of there is a per diem allowance of $85 when you're away on conference. We do look at economical air or ground travel or reimbursement of travel expenses. We do pay for the actual registration, any meals that you might not be covered by registration expenses. So there are general guidelines in place for travel expenditures for the councillors.
And under other expenses, can you give me the list of what we are charging for other expenses? What do we charge for other expenses?
I'm sorry, I don't have that detail, but perhaps Mr. Harrison could just highlight some of those items.
Just
Mr. Harrison?
Items like conference and tuition, accommodations, the per diem, and there's internet and cell phone charges as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything further questions on the balance of the consent agenda and items? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. We have a resolution to deal with regard to the actions of staff in filing a notice of appeal complaint against those properties outlined in Schedule A attached to the resolution, and staff be authorized to appear at the hearing to consider the appeals or complaints and take all necessary steps to support the said appeals. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Maves. Once again, any further comments or questions? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Now, Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bylaws for the council's consideration? Do you want to go on to new business? Yeah, okay. So, members of council, it's advised that we now go back to the Corporate Services Committee agenda, and we will deal with bylaws and new business thereafter. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, second by Councillor Diodati. All those in favor? Motion's carried again. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Dulovic for his capital budget presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to thank members of council for indulging staff. We just want to provide this information to you tonight so we can discuss this further at our April 20th meeting. And then Mr. Burton will be talking about the utility budget, and I know there's been some concerns raised there. And we are looking for some direction from council on how staff should be proceeding next on this matter. Just dealing with the first slide here quickly, just kind of gives you a 5-year forecast of where the spending is going. As you can see, we're talking about potentially $130 million in expenditures. Just a little background, you have your binders here, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. We have something new here called Tab 8. And in that Tab 8 are projects that have been considered in the past that council has asked for, but there is no funding for it. They're unfunded right now. And I think they're totaling well over $60 million in projects. And the options you have there are either issue debentures or move things out that are in the 5-year budget right now and do a switch. Just on that, the capital works budget was developed based on the pay-as-you-go. That was one of the directions we did get from council. So what you'll see as we get into the latter years, as we go through the slides here, you'll see a significant reduction in the debenturing that is being done. We're just finishing off some of the existing projects. Here's the 2009 expenditure list, totaling just a little over $63 million, most of that being in municipal works. As you can see, some of the major projects I'll talk in fire services is the start of the radio project. It's a health and safety issue. We're starting with $100,000 there. I do know that the fire chief has indicated that that project is proceeding along a little bit more quickly than anticipated. I will talk about, there's some debenturing that we're talking about doing next year in the order of $3 million for the actual radio system, but something that's in tab 8 that the fire chief would like to be pulled forward is about $252,000 for improvements to the headquarters with respect to accommodating this new radio system. So if there's any questions as we go through the process, I'm sure the chief would be happy to answer those questions. Your Worship?
Yes, Councillor Pietrangelo.
Your Worship, $40 million in municipal work expenditures for 2009. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure if it's a record. Maybe Mr. Dulovic can qualify whether or not it is for the city. But could you give us perhaps a bit of a breakdown as to where some of that money comes from?
Yes, there will be. I don't know if it's a record, but I was going to give some highlights of what those expenditures are. I'll just finish off fire services quickly. The next major item is the fire master plan that the fire department will be embarking upon, and it'll address future servicing requirements and manpower, et cetera. So this is an important piece of document to set the stage for where fire services are going to go in the future. With respect to municipal works, yes, $40 million is quite significant, and after looking through the binder, there's no one, I think that there's one large project in there, that being $6.2 million for the Caver Road sewer reconstruction. As Mr. Holman indicated earlier this evening, he was talking about some of the flooding we've been experiencing on Lexington Court. This is to address that issue down in there, so we're talking about $6.2 million there. Some other significant items, Drummond Road reconstruction, $2.8 million. Oakwood Drive, $2.3 million. We're, with the majority of that funding, we are looking to others to fund that. As I look through, I get Warren Creek, $2.75 million. Again, we're looking to others to fund that work. Lions Creek Water Main, $1.7 million. McLeod Road Water Main, $1.8 million. Montrose Road Business Park, $1.2 million, and that's being funded through the sales of the lands that are taking place there, and that will service some additional lands there that we can sell to prospective purchasers. We also have Ferry Street, $2 million there, and Main Street, another $1.2 million. So those are some of the highlights of that $40 million. And you can see there's several large projects that go into that $40 million expenditure. In transportation services, the significant expenditure there is $3.3 million in new buses, and the next biggest expenditure is $600,000 in fare boxes. For PRC, the driver for that is the Gale Center. We've identified about $14.6 million this year in that area. Library, $100,000 is for books. That's the bulk of that. The museums is the legacy project that council approved earlier. We are now doing the RFPs for the project managers and the architects to proceed with that project. The museum is very anxious to get the design done and put shovel in the ground either December or January of next year. And then finally, the downtown CIP, $100,000 from the region and $100,000 from the city. And that is your $63 million, just over $63.6 million in expenditures for 2009. Now, where do we get our money from? We get them both from the capital, comes from both our operating budget and our utility budgets. We'll be talking, Mr. Burton will be talking about our utility budget a little later on this evening after my presentation. We get about $9.1 million through that budget to fund the water and sewer portion of the works. We have significant dollars in operating. A lot of that is for storm sewer and road works that provide that funding. We also have some reserve funds from previous years, some monies that have been earmarked towards projects that haven't been completed yet. So you'll see in some of the capital sheets some opening balances from previous years as we're finishing off those projects. We have development charges, local improvement charges, government grants. We'll get them from COMREC, the Canada, Ontario Municipal Rural Infrastructure Program. in that the city is under 100,000, we're considered a rural municipality. We qualify there. We have the federal and provincial gas tax money. I know the federal gas tax is well over $2 million in funding we received there. Again, we talked about the CIP and some regional funding there, and they also partner with us on some of our other projects, such as Ferry Street. They'll be contributing towards the asphalt, the final top coat of asphalt on that project, as well as Build Canada that we received for the legacy project for the museum. Just on that, they're aware of additional funding that will be made available through the federal government. They're going to be providing some additional money through Build Canada. We'll have to follow the same rules as that. It's one-third funding. There's about 17 different areas that you can apply for, and there's quite a detailed list of criteria that you have to meet. There's some new stimulus package out there. We don't have the details on that yet. That'll be forthcoming from the province and the feds. Now that the provincial budget is completed, we understand staff from the federal and provincial level are meeting to discuss the rules and how municipalities will apply. There's also a program with respect to recreation projects that they're doing across Canada. But there is a cap on that of about $1 million that you could potentially get from that program, and that too is part of the stimulus fund that the federal government is doing. We talk about external contributions. Sometimes you have developers, community groups like girls soccer that provided for the artificial field, community fundraising such as we're doing right now with the Gale Center, and finally the issue of debt. And as I said, council did give staff direction to go as pay-as-you-go, and as a result, you'll see right here a significant reduction in the later years on debt. Just to talk about what's happening in 2009, these are for expenditures that have already occurred. For fire, it's vehicles, municipal works, Clifton Hill, transportation services, we have traffic calming, and finally for parks, PRC, it's the Cummings Sports Park. For 2010, we're looking at Bridge Street, the sewer separation work that's gone on there. We're just finishing up that this year, and there'll be some debenturing you'll have to do there. And as you can see, in 2010 under PRC, we have the arena. Again, and a little bit left in 2011 to debenture. And in fire services in 2011, we have the radio project. And as I indicated earlier, we were requesting another $252,000 be added to that for debenturing in order to complete off that project. As I said earlier, tab 8, we call that the addendum. Those items aren't included in the funding going into the future. They're not incorporated into that 3-year forecast that we did on the budget for 2009, 10, and 11. All those projects don't have any funding in place, such as the rail grade separation, Boys and Girls Club, and as I said, that's well over $60 million worth of projects that were identified there that we don't have funding for. And as I said, we talked about, we balanced our projects to available funding, and we talked about those sources earlier from the utility and from the tax supported areas and whatever other funds were available. As we mentioned, there's a moment to it. We need to deal with the Southwest Grassy Brook West projects, those well over $12 million in those pumping station projects that were completed, and how that will be funded. Up until now, we've been using internal sources for funding those projects as opposed to going to debentures. Staff will be bringing back a report to council on how we go forward on that. And that's it.
Are there any questions of Mr. Dulevic by members of council? Thank you very much, Mr. Dulevic. We have something for our consideration now. We can review our binders before the next meeting, and I'm sure there'll be more questions at that time. Thank you very much. Mr. Burden, I guess you'll be now making your presentation on the municipal utility budget. So welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. We did want to present the utility budget tonight. We realize that, yes, please. Thanks. We realize that this is late, and we do not anticipate you making any decision tonight on this, but there may be certain direction.
Excuse me, Mr. Burden, I have a question. Councillor Thompson.
Was there not requests by the Chamber of Commerce and others to defer this until we have a full discussion on this with the representatives from the BIA, the Chamber of Commerce? I don't want to go through this twice, And if you're going to go through it again with the parties, did you not get that request? And is that not what you're talking about?
Mr. Bird?
Not only the Chamber of Commerce, but also we had...
Oh, the BIAs?
Yes.
We had the casinos, we had Canadian Niagara Hotels. We also spoke to the president of the Stanley Avenue Business Park Association today.
So why,
pleasure of council then.
why would we
take a motion?
I moved for a deferral.
Councillor Thompson, sorry.
Yeah, and if I can just say something, I think that we've already said that council will not be making any decisions, but that staff wants to at least get information to us so that they know that we have options available to us. I think if you listen to the presentation, you can see that all staff's trying to do is tell you what options there are available. We're not going to be making any decisions tonight.
Well, I understand that, and you want to get yourself into trouble with the user groups is to have a presentation without them being here. I want them to hear exactly what we're hearing, and I thought it was an automatic tonight. I'm surprised we're even attempting to do that. The request was made. I saw the requests on numerous different parties, so I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I would rather have it done in one shot with the people here so we can hear from them.
I appreciate your comments, Councillor. I think we were just trying to provide the information that Mr. Burton was talking about, but I appreciate your point. We have a motion by Councillor Thompson to defer this. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ioannoni? All right, no discussion on that. All those in favor? Please hold your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Any opposed? One opposed. Okay, the motion's carried. Thank you. Now, members of council, I guess those two items, and they will be deferred. Would you like to make a motion with respect to the municipal utility budget and the municipal utility budget fees and charges for water and sewer? Can I have a motion, please, to bring that back with those parties who've expressed concern to be invited? Moved by Councillor Ioannoni, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any further discussion? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Move on to the bylaws. Mr. Clerk, are there any additional bylaws for council's consideration this evening? Okay, can I have a motion to introduce the bylaws? Bylaws be given a first reading. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, council has heard the motion. Any questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried.
Bylaws 2009-53 to 2009-60 read a first time.
Thank you. I have a motion to give the bylaws a second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Pietrangelo, seconded by Councillor Diodati. Once again, council has heard the motion. Any further questions or comments? Having seen none, all those in favor? Motion is carried.
Bylaws 2009-53 to 2009-60 read a second and third time and passed.
Thank you. New business, Councillor Fisher, and Councillor Ioannoni, and Councillor Diodati.
Thank you. I have been requested to bring this forward. It's a hunger strike. Help Niagara Falls stamp out hunger. Saturday, May the 9th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Glengate Alliance Church. And the churches of Niagara Falls invite you to strike back against hunger in our city. Donate food, then join in the fun day of food, games, and celebration as we give Project Share their biggest food drive ever. So they would like you to come out, have a great time, and enjoy the activities of the day, and that's May the 9th from 1 to 4 at the Glengate Alliance Church, and it's put on by the churches in Niagara Falls.
Thank you. I have, yes, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Fisher, for the bags. But there's food in here. Can we not donate it back to Project Share?
The people brought these bags to me to give to you, and thank you very much, Dean. So I think maybe that would be a good idea if we filled them up and took them back.
Take them back. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, there's 5 cases there. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Move on to the next item, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week in the Niagara Falls Review, there was a substantial article about the Sunshine List. And in the Sunshine List, they listed our employees, and I went online and read them anyway. I was more amazed at the NHS employees. I was shocked beyond belief about that. But nonetheless, in the Sunshine List article, Mr. LaRocque covered the pay to our CAO. and what his pay covered. And in that article, it highlighted that our former CAO got an early retirement bonus. Well, I called Mr. LaRocque and said, where did you get that information? Because I didn't know about that. He got it from our staff. I called our staff today and asked our staff who approved that and how much it was. And because it was given information to the review, that's obviously public information. And I was stunned to hear that Mr. McDonald's early retirement bonus was very close to $80,000. Now, I'm befuddled because we froze our salaries. We froze hardworking senior staff salaries. We did a hiring freeze, but we gave a golden parachute handshake goodbye to Mr. McDonald, and he left without us knowing he was getting a close to $80,000 early retirement package. Now, I asked for a report that told us how we got there, and everybody got this in their addendum, March 19th, 2007, and it's entitled The Organizational Review and Implementation. And while I was on my conflict with the one development, I went out, I've read it 3 times. Nowhere in this report, anywhere, does it highlight Mr. McDonald or anybody else's early retirement package. As a matter of fact, the only thing in here dealt with Omer's early retirement options, and I sent a note to our staff and asked, was any of this covered by Omer's? And no, it was not. I was subsequently handed the minutes, which I'd never seen before, of the November 12th Human Resources Committee. And present there were Councillor Mays, Fisher, Mayor Salsi, John McDonald, and Trent Dark. And the one that highlighted to me was the bottom of this one page, where it says the HR committee agreed to extend the date of this year's voluntary retirement option for designated participants, i.e. 7 in total, from the deadline of September 08 to the end of the council term. This will enable the few remaining individuals some additional time for their retirement planning. Now, my notes on here are many, many extra dollars to taxpayers. I was under the understanding that the HR committee did not have any power. I'm also of the understanding, having been here, I think long enough, to understand that any decision like that has to come to council and council ratify it. I'm befuddled how, Mr. Mayor, you yourself and Mr. McDonald were in on that meeting and know things have to be ratified by council. Why that didn't come to us? And I also, I'd like to make a motion that we get a full report from staff on how this happened. I want to know how many staff has accessed this voluntary retirement option, and I want to know when this council passed a bylaw of such. We had one small discussion in camera about a voluntary retirement option with a window that was so slim you couldn't get out of it. That was the only discussion any of us have been involved in. So I'd like to know how this happened, and I want to know, is it legal? Did we pay out money? Well, I know we didn't sanction it because I have never voted on that. Because I know for a fact, I'd have been standing on this desk screaming that we're holding everybody else at bay, but we're writing off golden handshakes. I want to know how this happened, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion by Councillor Ioannoni, second by Councillor Wing, for a report to be prepared by staff. Any further discussion or comments? Councillor Fisher?
And I totally agree with you. Any decision we make in HR is to come back to council for their endorsement and ratification. So why we didn't ever receive that report here, I can't remember it coming here, and so I'm very happy that you brought this forward. Thank you.
I'd be very interested to know. My understanding is that money's already been paid out. I am amazed how somebody can create a report for their own financial benefit that doesn't come to council for us to approve. I mean, the taxpayers out there got to be shaking their head at us, because I'm so sick and tired of standing here saying, but we didn't know. And we didn't know. It's incumbent upon you as chair and our former CAO to bring this information to council, and I want to know how it didn't get back to us, and I'd like to know from our lawyer in the report whether it's actually a legal transaction, because I'm amazed that public money can go out without council approving it.
Thank you. We have a motion before members of council, and we have some people. Ms. Dulwich, do you wish to address that now, or do you want to?
Through your worship, no, I think it would be best if staff does prepare the report so we can get what has transpired and the chronologically of events.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. I'm sorry, I have Councillor Diodati next.
Thank you, Worship. Recently it's come to our attention with regard to the plastics industry and the idea of banning bottled this and plastic that. And it's come to my attention that we have an issue within the city in that we are lacking recycle receptacles throughout all of our facilities. And, Your Worship, I would make a motion right now that staff address this as an utmost concern, and that we, before the seasons commence, we get recycle receptacles put into all of our city facilities, outside and in.
City-owned? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, city-owned and or operated, outside and in.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wing. Any discussion? Councillor Peter Angelo.
Yeah, Your Worship, and I think it's a good idea, and I think it's well needed, but I think that we need to talk to the plastic bottling companies to see whether or not they want to contribute monies towards our recycling program. Might be something that they're very interested in doing, Your Worship.
Perhaps when they come before us, we can ask that question. Sure. Councillor Carrio.
That was my question, Your Worship, just to see if Councillor Dianati would adjust his motion to let staff investigate rather than just put them there. Because from my understanding at that meeting, that illegal meeting we had with plastics people, that they would be willing to help in recycling. That they thought that would be the first step towards handling plastics rather than just an open ban. So I think that staff should look into it and bring it back with the understanding that we're...
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Sure. Does that meet with your approval, Councillor Diodati?
Yes, Your Worship. I think that would be a great chance for them to show that they're
Councillor
good
Wing.
corporate citizens.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Wing? That meet with your approval as well? The suggestion was that when we have the discussion with the plastics, presentation on the plastic banning, that we ask those people to participate as well, the bottling industry, to participate in the process of supplying the blue boxes. Recycling.
I don't think it's a great expense to put blue boxes in public facilities. I know when I go up to Brock, there's all kinds of recycling containers all over the place, and universities are pretty cash-strapped as well. So if Brock can do it, then why can't we? I buy a blue box for each facility.
Clerk wants to make a comment, then Councillor Carrio.
Yes, I just, staff should bring back a report. We got into this gambit already where costs were a lot more than we anticipated or the full information wasn't there, so I suggest that the motion just refer it to staff. Staff will look at funding opportunities and report back.
Okay. Councillor Carrio? Okay, once again, Councillor Diodati?
Yeah, that's fine, Your Worship, as long as it comes back very quickly, because season is upon us, tournaments are on the way, and we want to be ready.
Councillor Wing? Okay. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Councillor Peter Angelo.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I'm sure that all of Council got the email from the one resident that emailed us about the stalled train on the track. And when I sent back the reply to the resident, the only thing I said is that I would ask on the status of the committee that we formed to look at rerouting the train. So I'm just wondering if either yourself or a member of
Sure, I'd be glad to address the matter, and we have others here who might want to make some comment. We've had a number of meetings, Councillor Thompson with Mr. Redis upon, with our Transportation Department. We have had a chance to, Councillor Maves, I think, were you there as well? I'm not sure who's on the committee. Were you at the rail relocation? Okay. Anyway, at this point, Councillor, what we've done, we've had a series of meetings. We actually had a meeting with the train master so he could tell us what the schedules were like and what the demand was for those tracks. We proceeded to have a meeting with the Minister of Justice, who was our local MP, and he's requested through him to have a meeting with the Minister of Transport. I'm going to be seeing the Honourable Mr. Baird next week, and I was hoping that I could just convey the concern that we have and have him come down here to see this issue. We did have an issue on the last Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, and the fire chief had a chance to brief me at the time, and he'll explain. I'll ask him to speak. But there's been a number of positive suggestions from the committee, and one in particular is that we may be able to just have the rail company, CN Railroad, designate or realign their train travel so they could head straight and not use the Whirlpool cutoff, which really does dissect our city east and west. And from that point, that line wouldn't be utilized rather than having us pay for the line. We've had some people request that we just go ahead and build a $16 million overpass since the 3-hour delay. But there was an exception to that delay as to why it happened. We know there are challenges there. But I want to assure you that the chief will confirm this as far as fire services go. But in addition, the emergency services, we always have vehicles posted at the north end of the city. You may often see a emergency vehicle posted around the St. Paul Mountain Road area, and that's done on purpose so that those people are posted out there in the event that the city was cut in half by a train, that the emergency could still be responded to and access to the Queenie can still be achieved. But I'm going to ask our fire chief to address further the incident that occurred and what, if any, emergencies or emergency services were required. Mr. Chief, address
Thank you, Your Worship. That day we had a train that ended up blocking many of the road crossings throughout the city, starting on Morrison Street and proceeding all the way through Dorchester, Drummond, Thoroldstone Road, and Portage Road. And what happened was the train had a malfunction, a mechanical malfunction, and at some point the emergency braking system activated like it should on the train. And because it is an emergency braking system, the train ended up stopping very quickly, and some of the knuckles that joined some of the train cars actually broke. So the train ended up in 3 pieces. So the first piece was moved away after they ensured that there was going to be no further damage, and that was the Thoroldstone Road crossing. So that one was freed up right away, and it took them a bit of time in order to free up the other crossings so they could move the other 2 parts of the train and then subsequently fix it. So it caused us some concern. Obviously, when we have the city pretty well split in 2, it separates our stations, and we can only respond with 1 station at a time in some areas. In particular, our Dorchester Road station in the north end has 1 vehicle in it. So we do have vehicles in all sections of the city that can respond. And fortunately, we had call volumes that morning that didn't require any more than the resources we had in each section of the city at the time. But the potential is certainly there for us to need more resources than we have in any one section and not be able to get them through because of the blockage. So as far as EMS are concerned, they have ambulances that in many cases are staged in the north end of our city to cover off the north end, as well as the fact that if they have south end ambulances, they may not be able to get through because of trains. So, and that's how they work their the train or the EMS situation.
Chief Smith, you may want to address the issue of access, that you have a route designed to go around the train tracks. Could you confirm that for the benefit of the residents who are listening?
Right. If we do have a blockage and we know that we're going to be blocked in any one of the crossings, we'll try and use an alternate route, and in many cases it will involve the 420 and the QEW to try and get around and back into the areas that we can't access through the normal crossings. And that works, but it's a delay, and it will take us additional time to get to emergencies by doing that. So what we could have is 1 fire vehicle, if there's a structure fire that's on the scene, that can only do very limited things and be stuck for a while before they're actually able to get inside a building and effect rescues and things where you need more firefighting resources in order to do that.
And possibly we should confirm to others that you were notified by CN Police immediately. Is that correct?
We were notified right away, and some of the concerns that we have are when we commit the vehicles to the train crossings and then the trains are stopped, they have to then try and evaluate and then reroute, turn around, and then retrace their steps until they can get to another route. So those are the concerns that we have, but in this particular case, we were able to address all the emergencies that morning.
There were none that morning, is that correct?
There were emergencies, but they were mostly single vehicle calls, and we were able to address them with the resources we had on either side of the track.
Okay, thank you. We have questions from members of council. I have Councillor Peter Angelo. Pardon? Yes, sir.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I appreciate the update, and it's nice to know that a member of local parliament is working with you in tandem and the committee to hopefully find a solution to this problem. I guess what I really wanted to do, Your Worship, was publicize the fact that there is a committee that's looking at rerouting the trains. I think a lot of people in the community right now are wondering why we haven't gone ahead with the overpass, and that, to me, Your Worship, would be the biggest reason. I think it would be fiscally irresponsible to build a bridge right now if, in the end, we're going to end up rerouting the trains. So I wanted the public to know.
Certainly, I thank you for that, because that was the whole reason of the committee, and the committee has had a number of meetings, and we're still progressing on a series of meetings since last fall. As you said, we would be ashamed to commit $16 million if we could find a solution, and a local taxpayer, Mr. Edisopon, has come up with an idea, and he's presented it to us, and we've had some research done, and we've met with a series of different individuals, and the next step is to invite the minister here to see it firsthand, to see if he can assist us with CN to try to alleviate the problem without spending the $16 million plus. Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I hope that happens sooner than later. I was one of those people stuck at the train track. I was the parent volunteer to drive the kids to the chess tournament for Cherrywood Acres School. Couldn't get there. The kids over an hour late. The lady in the newspaper article wasn't lying when she said kids and pedestrians were going under the stalled train to get to the other side. And I'm going to tell you something. That's terrifying when you know kids are doing that to get to the school. And while CN may have called Chief Smith, CN didn't help any of us who were stuck in that and had to back out and get out and talk people out to go around the highway to get to where we had to go. So there are a lot of people stalled there who were just livid that there wasn't a bridge to go over. So sooner than later would be better before somebody gets killed or we have a major accident there.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councillor Peter Angelo.
Another issue, Your Worship?
Yes. Please.
Yeah, Your Worship, and I got another email tonight, and I know I sent you an email perhaps a month ago, and I sent it to Mr. Arafita as well, that the microphones at Council don't really work too well. They kind of go in and out, and they go down sometimes when people are speaking, and I know that might not be a bad thing depending on who's speaking at the time, Your Worship. So, but anyway, Your Worship, I'm wondering if we can actually have our IT department look at it, and if they can't, then perhaps we can get someone from outside
Council,
to
you may
fix
be
it.
aware that they were here posted this evening and monitoring the activity. We've had them here the last couple meetings, and the system isn't set up for transmission. It's set up for this room. Unfortunately, that's part of the issue. I know that in other locations, if you go to Parliament, they have technicians who are sitting there with a control panel. We don't have that sophistication here, so I've asked for the same concern to be rectified as well. But we do have IT here who's been trying to address it. Mr. Clerk, do you want to confirm some of the other activities, please?
Well, I think you summed it up. I mean, we know there have been complaints. We brought it to the attention of both our IT people and Cogeco, so that if the issue is internally, that we've dealt with it, and if it's the transmission externally, Cogeco has attempted to deal with it. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is we don't have a Hollywood studio. It's cable television, so you're not going to get the greatest of quality.
Yeah, Your Worship, obviously there must be something wrong, though. I mean, I don't really accept that. We should be able to at least get someone in here to fix the problem so that we have, mediocre at best sound quality. So, Your Worship, I mean, I would make a motion that we at least get some quotes to see how much it would cost to fix the problem, Your Worship. Because I just got another email tonight that it's still not working properly.
Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, second by Councillor Diodati, that we get some quotes on some updating requirements to satisfy the basic requirements. Is that fair to say? Okay. Any further discussion on that? Councillor Wing?
I just note that the problem seems to be on this side of the room, because I got an email after the last council meeting noting that I couldn't always be heard either.
Well, our IT people, yes. Our IT staff has been here. You may notice them on their way in this evening, but they have been here. I'm not sure why they left. Mr. Clerk, do you know why that happened? Yeah. Do you know why they were discharged?
Well, because they didn't have to sit through a council meeting.
Yeah. Anyway, Councillor Ioannoni.
Thank you. When I was on my conflict and I left the room, I sat out there and watched it, and I could not hear one word that came out of Councillor Maeve's mouth. So it's not just this side. It was garbled, that entire side. So, and I was just sitting out there, and you couldn't hear it.
Okay. Well, we'll have the staff review the tape, and they'll come back to us with a recommendation. So all those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Now, no, we have a couple of things. Clarification of the bylaws, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, Mr. Burden pointed out, and I thank him for it, that actually bylaw 2009-56 obviously would not be passed tonight. That's related to the water and sewer rates. So our bylaws that actually were passed were 2009-53 without 2009-56, so we'll renumber the remaining bylaws, so it'll go to 2059, and that bylaw will be pulled.
Thank you very much for the qualification. So 2009-56 has changed, and it'll be then the balance will be ending at 2009-59. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I'd like to entertain a motion to take a few minutes to go into an in-camera session with regard to personnel matter. Moved by Councillor Peter Angelo, seconded by Councillor Ioannoni. All those in favor? Motion's carried. We'll adjourn in 2 minutes in the council room number 1. We're not coming back.
Well, you better make that clear.
We're not coming back to...